My parents gave my sister keys to my apartment while I was at sea. She moved in without asking. Hey friends. Got a sec? Drop your thoughts in the comments and hit subscribe. It's quick for you, but it really means a lot to the channel. Alright, let's dive into today's story. Original post. I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but I need to get this off my chest before I completely lose it. I'm a 29-year-old marine biologist working at one of the largest aquariums on the East Coast. It's my dream job. I get to work with incredible marine species, conduct research that actually matters, and occasionally lead diving expeditions to study coral reef systems. I've worked incredibly hard to get where I am, including getting my master's degree while working full-time and publishing several papers on marine ecosystem preservation. 2 weeks ago, I left for a research expedition studying migration patterns of reef sharks off the Carolina coast. It was supposed to be the highlight of my year. We were testing new tracking equipment that could revolutionize how we monitor endangered species. I'd prepared for months, made sure everything at home was sorted, and even asked my neighbor to water my plants. What I didn't prepare for was coming home to find my entire life turned upside down. When I unlocked my apartment door yesterday evening, exhausted from 2 weeks at sea, the first thing that hit me was the smell. Vanilla, cinnamon, and what I later identified as buttercream frosting. My living room, which I'd left meticulously organized with my research papers and marine photography books, was now covered in pink throw pillows and some kind of shabby chic decorations. But the real shock came when I walked into my kitchen. My sister, a 27-year-old pastry chef, had completely taken over. Industrial-sized stand mixers covered my counters. Professional baking sheets were stacked where my coffee maker used to be. The refrigerator I'd emptied before leaving was packed with blocks of butter, containers of heavy cream, and various fruit compotes. My small freezer, which usually held frozen meals for quick dinners between late research sessions, was crammed with what looked like wedding cake tiers. At first, I thought I was hallucinating from exhaustion. Then I saw her purse on my couch and her shoes by the door. I found her asleep in my bed, with her clothes filling my closet and her makeup covering my bathroom counter. When I woke her up, she had the audacity to act like I was the one intruding. "Oh, you're back early," she said, rubbing her eyes. "Mom said you'd be gone for at least another week." The story that came out made my blood boil. My parents, who live about 40 minutes away, had secretly made copies of my apartment keys months ago during a visit. They'd given them to my sister last week, telling her she could move in while I was away. Their reasoning: scientists are always traveling anyway, and family should help family. Your sister needed a place closer to the bakery where she works, and you're never home to use all this space properly. My sister had literally moved out of her perfectly fine apartment, broken her lease, and relocated all her professional baking equipment into my one-bedroom apartment without asking me. Without even telling me. She'd been running her side business, custom cakes and pastries, out of MY Kitchen for the past 10 days. She'd been meeting clients in MY Living Room. She'd given out MY address to her customers. When I demanded she leave immediately, she laughed. She actually laughed and said, "Come on, don't be dramatic. We're family. Mom and Dad said you'd be fine with it once you got used to the idea. Besides, I'm paying them rent money that they're saving for you." Paying my parents rent. For MY apartment. That I pay $1,800 a month for in a city where finding a decent place is nearly impossible. I called my parents immediately, and their response was even worse. My father's exact words were, "You're being selfish. You're gone half the time anyway with your fish stuff. Your sister is building a real career that keeps her in one place. She needs the stability more than you do." Fish stuff. Fish stuff. I study marine ecosystems that are collapsing due to climate change. I'm part of a team that's working to prevent entire species from going extinct. But sure, it's just fish stuff. My mother was no better. "Honey, you need to learn to share. Your sister has been struggling to afford rent near the bakery, and family helps family. You can stay in your old room here when you're not traveling. It all works out." I hung up on them. I gave my sister 1 hour to pack an overnight bag and get out, or I was calling the police. She called my parents, who called me, and when I didn't answer, they actually drove over. The three of them stood in MY apartment, telling me I was overreacting, being selfish, and not thinking about family. My sister had the nerve to say, "I've already told all my clients this address. I have orders to fill. You can't just kick me out. I'll lose my business." My father added, "We raised you better than this. Your sister is trying to build something, and you're being petty about square footage you don't even use." I looked at these three people, who I thought knew me, and realized they had no idea who I was or what my life consisted of. They saw my career as some frivolous hobby that took me away from home, rather than recognizing it as the professional scientific work it is. They saw my apartment as wasted space rather than my sanctuary where I write research papers, analyze data, and decompress after long days. I told them all to leave. They refused. So I called the police. The officers who arrived were initially confused. This seemed like a family matter to them. But when I explained that someone had moved into my apartment without permission while I was away, using keys they had no right to copy, and were now refusing to leave, their tune changed. The fact that my name was the only one on the lease was crucial. My sister was given a criminal trespass warning and told she had to leave immediately. She could take only what she could carry and would need a police escort to retrieve the rest of her belongings at a time I agreed to. The officers helped me understand that what my parents did, copying keys without permission and facilitating someone moving in without my consent, was actually illegal. The scene they made was unbelievable. My mother cried about how I was tearing the family apart. My father called me ungrateful and said I'd regret this when I needed their help someday. My sister screamed that I was ruining her life and that her business would fail because of me. After they left, I sat in my violated space, surrounded by the remnants of my sister's invasion, flour dust on my research laptop, cake batter splattered on my walls, her decorations covering my belongings, and felt a rage I've never experienced before. This wasn't just about space or privacy. This was about complete and utter disrespect for my life, my career, and my autonomy as an adult. I've spent today documenting everything. Taking photos of the damage and the unauthorized modifications. Finding out that she'd been telling neighbors she was moving in permanently. Learning from my building security that she tried to add herself to the lease by claiming to be my spouse. The violation just keeps getting deeper. I'm done. I'm getting my locks changed tomorrow, looking into legal action, and cutting contact with all of them. They want to make me the villain? Fine. I'll be the villain who protects his home and career from people who clearly have no respect for either. Update 1. 5 days later. I didn't expect my post to blow up the way it did, and I certainly didn't expect to be back so soon with an update, but the situation has escalated beyond anything I could have imagined. First, thank you to everyone who validated that I wasn't overreacting. The number of similar stories in the comments was both heartbreaking and oddly comforting. To those who said I should have handled it differently because family is family, respectfully, you haven't had your boundaries obliterated like this. Now for the update. The day after my post, I had the locks changed to a high-security system that can't be easily copied. The locksmith, after hearing an abbreviated version of my story, recommended I also install a camera system, which I did. Best $400 I've ever spent, because what happened next was captured in full HD. My sister came back while I was at work. Not with police escort as required, but with my parents and a locksmith of their own. They tried to break in. When their copied keys didn't work, they actually tried to have the locksmith drill my new locks. Fortunately, the locksmith realized something was off when my sister couldn't provide any proof she lived there, and he refused. The entire attempted break-in was caught on camera. But they didn't stop there. My sister went to my workplace, the aquarium, and caused a scene. She marched into the research wing, which requires special clearance, and started screaming about how I'd stolen her home and destroyed her business. Security had to escort her out, but not before she disrupted a school field trip and upset several families. My director had to call me into his office to discuss the domestic situation affecting our workplace. I showed him the lease, the police report, and the camera footage. He was appalled and immediately banned my family from the premises. He also suggested I file for a restraining order, which I did that afternoon. Meanwhile, my phone was exploding. My parents had enlisted extended family to harass me. Aunts, uncles, cousins, people I hadn't spoken to in years were suddenly texting and calling, telling me I was selfish, cruel, and not the man they thought I was. The narrative my parents spun was that my sister was homeless because of me, that I'd thrown her onto the streets with nowhere to go, and that I was letting my fancy education make me think I was better than my family. Nobody mentioned that she had broken her perfectly good lease on her own apartment. Nobody mentioned the criminal trespassing. Nobody mentioned that she'd tried to break into my apartment again. The best part? My sister had taken photos of my apartment while she was squatting there and posted them on her business's Instagram as her new gorgeous workspace. She'd already advertised my address to hundreds of followers. I've been getting random people buzzing my apartment, asking about cake orders. One couple showed up expecting a wedding cake tasting. I decided to go full scorched earth. I contacted a lawyer who specializes in tenant law and criminal trespassing. Turns out, what my family did wasn't just illegal, it was criminally illegal. Making unauthorized key copies with intent to allow someone to illegally occupy a residence? That's criminal conspiracy. The attempted break-in after being formally trespassed? That's attempted breaking and entering. Using my address for business purposes without permission? Fraud. But here's where it gets really interesting. Remember how my sister said she'd been paying my parents rent, that they were saving for me? Well, my lawyer subpoenaed those records. Not only had my parents been taking $800 a month from my sister, they'd also told her she could claim it as a business expense since she was using the apartment for her baking business. They were essentially subletting my apartment that I was already paying for and pocketing the money. We filed criminal charges. All three of them were arrested yesterday. My sister was charged with criminal trespassing, attempted breaking and entering, and fraud for using my address for her business without authorization. My parents were charged with criminal conspiracy, fraud, and theft by deception for the rent scheme. The family explosion has been nuclear. Extended relatives are calling me a monster for having my own family arrested. My grandmother called me crying, saying I'm destroying the family. My uncle threatened to disown me. The funny thing is, these are the same people who, for years, have made jokes about my playing with fish and asked when I was going to get a real job. The marine biology community, on the other hand, has been incredibly supportive. My colleagues are appalled at what happened. My director has written a letter supporting my restraining order application, detailing how my sister's actions disrupted our workplace and could have compromised sensitive research. The team I was on the expedition with even pooled together to help with my legal fees, though insurance is covering most of it. My apartment is finally starting to feel like mine again. I've had to have it professionally cleaned to get rid of all the baking residue. The walls needed repainting where she'd splattered various batters and frostings. My kitchen appliances all needed deep cleaning. The smell of vanilla extract is finally fading. But the damage to my family? That's permanent. And honestly, I'm okay with that. They showed me who they really are, people who view my life, career, and home as less important than their own wants. People who would literally steal from me while claiming it was for my own good. People who would rather destroy my reputation and peace than admit they were wrong. I have court dates coming up. I'm not dropping the charges. They made their choices, and now they get to live with the consequences. Just like I've had to live with the consequences of trusting them with access to my life. Update 2, 6 weeks later. The last 6 weeks have been a masterclass in watching entitled people face consequences for the first time in their lives. I thought I'd update since so many of you have been asking for closure on this disaster. The criminal cases have been moving forward, and the reality of the situation has finally hit my family like a freight train. Or maybe more appropriately, like a great white shark they didn't see coming. My sister's life has imploded spectacularly. Remember that upscale bakery where she worked? They fired her the day after her arrest. Turns out, having an employee charged with breaking and entering, trespassing, and fraud isn't great for a luxury establishment's reputation. The best part? She'd been bragging to her coworkers about her new apartment and had invited some of them to see her amazing new workspace. When news of her arrest got out, along with the fact that she'd been lying about the apartment being hers, her professional reputation evaporated. But it gets worse for her. All those clients she'd given my address to? They started demanding refunds when they couldn't reach her for their orders. She couldn't fulfill them because she no longer had access to my kitchen or her professional equipment, which was still locked in my apartment as evidence. Several clients are now suing her for breach of contract. The wedding cake couple who showed up at my door? They're suing her for the full cost of their wedding cake plus damages because she couldn't deliver on her contract. Her Instagram business page became a battlefield. Once word got out about what she'd done, the comment section turned into a disaster zone. She tried to spin it as a family misunderstanding, but someone, not me, though I wish I could take credit, posted the police report in the comments. She lost over 3,000 followers in 2 days and had to make her account private. Her budding business is now completely destroyed. My parents, meanwhile, have been hemorrhaging money. Their lawyer fees alone are eating through their savings, but that's just the beginning. Remember that rent money they were collecting from my sister? The IRS is now very interested in that unreported income. They're facing tax fraud charges on top of everything else. But here's where it gets really interesting. My lawyer discovered that this wasn't their first rodeo. 5 years ago, they pulled something similar with my cousin, told him his brother could stay for a while in his condo while he was deployed military. That situation ended badly too, but family pressure kept my cousin from pressing charges. He's now provided a statement for my case. The restraining orders were granted. All three of them are legally required to stay at least 500 feet away from me, my home, and my workplace. The aquarium actually sent a formal letter to my parents and sister, informing them that they're permanently banned from the premises and will be arrested for trespassing if they attempt to enter. The extended family pressure has mostly died down because they've realized I'm not backing down. A few relatives have actually reached out to apologize, saying they only heard my parents' version and didn't realize the extent of what happened. My aunt admitted that my parents had tried something similar with her vacation home years ago, trying to move my sister in while she was abroad. The court dates have been illuminating. My sister showed up to the first hearing in designer clothes and tried to play the victim, claiming she was just trying to build her business and help family. The judge shut that down quickly when presented with the evidence: the copied keys, the attempted break-in footage, the fraudulent use of my address, and the damage to my apartment. Her lawyer tried to argue that family disputes shouldn't result in criminal charges. The prosecutor responded that breaking and entering doesn't become legal just because you share DNA with the victim. My parents' hearing was even more ridiculous. They actually tried to argue that, as parents, they had some sort of implicit right to access my home. The judge asked them if I was a minor. When they said no, he asked if they were on the lease. No again. Then he asked on what planet they thought parental rights extended to breaking into their adult child's home and subletting it without permission. Their lawyer actually looked embarrassed. The criminal trials are set for next month, but the civil lawsuit is where things get really interesting. My lawyer has calculated damages including the cost of cleaning and repairing my apartment, the cost of the security system I had to install, lost wages from having to deal with this situation, emotional distress from the harassment campaign they orchestrated, and punitive damages for the deliberate nature of their actions. We're suing for $60,000. My parents' lawyer tried to negotiate a settlement. They offered $5,000 and a written apology if I dropped the criminal charges. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud in the lawyer's office. My attorney responded that the criminal charges were up to the prosecutor now, and our civil suit would proceed regardless. The discovery phase has been revealing exactly how premeditated this was. Text messages between my parents and sister dating back 3 months, planning this whole scheme. Messages where my mother explicitly says, "He'll never agree to it if we ask, so we'll just do it while he's gone. He'll get over it." Messages where my sister jokes about upgrading from her studio to a real apartment without paying for it. Messages where my father calls me too focused on those damn fish to know what's good for him. Meanwhile, my life has actually improved significantly since cutting them off. My research paper on shark migration patterns was accepted for publication in a prestigious marine biology journal. The expedition I was on when this all started? Our findings are being presented at an international conference next year, and I've been selected to be part of the presentation team. My director has recommended me for a promotion to senior research biologist, which comes with a substantial raise and the opportunity to lead my own research projects. The apartment is truly mine again. I've redecorated to remove any trace of my sister's presence. The kitchen is back to its original, peaceful state. I've turned the whole experience into motivation for my work. There's something therapeutic about studying apex predators after dealing with family members who thought they were at the top of the food chain. Final update, 3 months later. This will be my last update on this situation because I'm finally ready to close this chapter of my life. The criminal trials have concluded, the civil lawsuit has been settled, and the aftermath has been, well, exactly what you'd expect when entitled people finally face consequences. The criminal trials were swift. My sister pleaded no contest to criminal trespassing and fraud charges. She received 2 years probation, 200 hours of community service, and a criminal record that will follow her forever. The judge was particularly unsympathetic when she tried to cry about her destroyed business, pointing out that she destroyed it herself through her criminal actions. She was also ordered to pay restitution for the damage to my apartment. The best part? During the pre-sentencing investigation, it came out that she'd been fired from 2 previous bakery jobs for borrowing expensive equipment and ingredients for her side business. This pattern of entitlement ran deeper than just housing, apparently. My parents pleaded guilty to conspiracy and fraud charges in exchange for lighter sentences. They each received 18 months probation and substantial fines. The tax investigation is ongoing, but their lawyer told mine they're expecting to owe at least $30,000 in back taxes and penalties. Their retirement savings? Gone. They've had to take out a second mortgage on their house to pay for lawyers and fines. The civil lawsuit settled for $47,000. They had 30 days to pay. They managed it, but just barely. I heard through the grapevine that they had to sell my father's vintage car collection and my mother's jewelry. The same items they used to brag about at family gatherings. The irony isn't lost on me. My sister's professional life is over in this city. With a criminal record for fraud, no high-end bakery will hire her. The last I heard, she was working at a chain grocery store's bakery department, making $15 an hour decorating pre-made cakes. Her Instagram business never recovered. She tried to start over with a new account, but someone always finds out and posts about her criminal record. She's moved back in with my parents, into my old childhood bedroom. The same room they suggested I should stay in when visiting. Poetic justice. The extended family has been interesting. The relatives who took my parents' side have gone quiet since the convictions. A few have reached out to apologize, but I haven't responded. The cousin whose home my parents had previously invaded has become a good friend through this. We've bonded over our shared experiences and terrible parents. My grandmother passed away last month. I didn't go to the funeral. I heard it was awkward, with family members divided between those who thought I should have been there and those who understood why I wasn't. My parents apparently told everyone I was too busy with fish to attend. Even facing financial ruin and criminal records, they couldn't resist one last dig at my career. Speaking of my career, it's thriving. The promotion came through, and I'm now leading a groundbreaking study on the effects of microplastics on shark reproduction. It's a 3-year project with international collaboration. I've been invited to speak at conferences in Australia and Norway next year. My research team just got approval for a massive grant that will fund our work for the next 5 years. The apartment has been my sanctuary through all of this. I've upgraded to a biometric lock system that only responds to my fingerprints. The security cameras remain active. I've never felt safer or more at peace in my own home. The irony that I study some of the ocean's most dangerous predators but needed protection from my own family isn't lost on me. I've been in therapy to process all of this. My therapist has helped me understand that my family's behavior wasn't really about the apartment. It was about control. They couldn't accept that I'd built a life independent of their expectations. My success in a field they didn't understand or respect threatened their worldview where they were the authorities on how life should be lived. The most interesting revelation. This pattern goes back generations. My therapist helped me see how my grandparents did similar things to my parents, who then perpetuated the cycle. The difference is, I broke it. I said no. I held them accountable. And that's why they're so angry, not because of the apartment or the charges, but because I refused to play my assigned role in their dysfunction. I've had to mourn the family I thought I had. The supportive parents who were proud of my accomplishments. The sister who respected my boundaries. They never existed. What I had instead were people who saw my success as something to exploit, my absence as an opportunity, and my kindness as weakness. But I've also discovered a chosen family. My research team has been incredible. My director has become something of a mentor, not just professionally but personally. My neighbors, who witnessed some of the drama, have been checking in on me regularly. The cute marine veterinarian at work even asked me out for coffee, and we've been dating for a month now. She jokes that she's grateful my apartment is a family-free zone. There's something oddly fitting about my work with sharks through all of this. Sharks are deeply misunderstood creatures. They're seen as mindless killers when they're actually sophisticated, essential parts of their ecosystem. They maintain boundaries fiercely and don't tolerate threats to their territory. They've survived for millions of years by being exactly what they are, without apology. I've learned to be more like the sharks I study. Maintain boundaries. Don't tolerate threats. Be unapologetic about who you are and what you need to survive. My parents and sister are strangers to me now. I don't know how they're dealing with their destroyed finances and criminal records, and I don't care. They made choices. They faced consequences. The end. To everyone who followed this story and offered support, thank you. To those dealing with similar family situations, you're not obligated to tolerate abuse just because it comes from relatives. Your home is your sanctuary. Your life is your own. And anyone who tries to take that from you, regardless of their relationship to you, is showing you who they really are. Believe them. As for me, I'm diving back into my research, my newly peaceful life, and my secure apartment. Next month, I'm leading another expedition, this time to study hammerhead breeding grounds in the Pacific. I'll be gone for 3 weeks. And this time, I know my apartment will be exactly as I left it when I return.